Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 3 of EGF Leads. Today we are talking about content creation for live streamers. Thank you all so much for taking the time to join us. For those of you who may be new to EGF Leads, this series is designed for students, faculty, staff to get ideas about how to manage their program and how to continue to grow and develop their programs on their individual campuses. So today we've got an all-star panel lined up for you talking about live streaming and content creation. We know, obviously, a huge part of what we do in esports is live streaming games, but there's this whole other world and all these other opportunities around live streaming with other content. So before we get started here, I'm going to ask our panelists to unmute themselves and introduce themselves. So Danielle, I'll start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. I'm super excited to be here. So, my name is Danielle Rourke. I am a senior higher education strategist with Dell Technologies. So, I get to help kind of bridge the gap between Dell Technologies as a corporation and a service provider and our educational customers. I used to work for University of Colorado Boulder, and I've been a gamer since I was a little girl, and only in the past few years really gotten passionate about esports. So, I'm super excited to be here.
Great. And looks like we had our panelists were hopping around there for a second, but James, I'll go to you next.
Sure. Yeah, James O'Hagan. I am currently serving as the Director of Digital and Virtual Learning for the Racine Unified School District in Racine, Wisconsin. And I'm also the host of the Academy of Esports podcast, which you can grab anywhere you get podcasts. And also, I co-host the Thursday night Esports EDU chats with several of my colleagues, educational colleagues from across the country. And yeah, that's what I do.
Great. Thanks for being here. And Kevin, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Kevin Fair. I am the CEO and founder of IPlayGames. We're your turnkey solution for live and virtual video game events. I've had fun, almost, I think, helping just about everybody. And so I have a ball talking about video games. I'm also the head of the Chicago Video Gamers Club. And in that role, I just have a lot of fun doing interesting things for different video gaming groups. And we have events.
That's great. Yep. DePaul's got an event with IPlayGames this week, so we're pretty excited to have you join us here today. But Matt, we'll have you rounded out.
Everybody, my name is Matt Buerckholtz, otherwise known as my gamer tag, if you want to call it that, just Matt Beach. So, I'm a competitor in esports. I love playing games. I got the jersey. I'm all set to go. But I'm also a member of the esports leadership team at DePaul University. And on top of hosting events and contributing to student involvement on campus and, online events as well, I've been live streaming a lot of events for DePaul, whether it be some of the events that we've hosted, like tournaments, or separate kind of like panel sort of live streams, or even on one occasion a demo where we were able to build a PC. So definitely quite a bit of a live stream experience at this point, covering a lot of different bases and using a lot of different stuff to actually stream things. So it's been a lot of fun.
Matt, I can't believe you're not using this as an opportunity to do a shout out about how well our Smash team's doing in EGF.
We're trying to stay humble, That's all.
Okay. All right. Well, as we get started here, I want to start off by talking about what's working well versus what are some of the challenge areas. So, James, maybe we'll start with you here. Can you just talk a little bit about what's worked well with some of the content you've created versus what are some areas that you've struggled a little bit more?
Well, the nice thing about my background is not only am I the director of digital virtual learning, but I was also an IT director for a number of years for different schools and school districts. What that helps me with is being able to see problems and potential solutions, especially from all perspectives, whether it's working with students who maybe have limited means or families who don't quite understand what they're getting into. I think especially now that's been kind of a hot topic is working a lot with parents, because a lot of kids are just creating content and putting it out there, and parents have no idea what's getting put out there. Again, my focus is in the K-12 sphere, and I know collegiate is a little different like that because you're not talking about minors. But some of the things that have come up at this time is, again, making sure that we realize just that while some things are easy for some people to do, they're very difficult for others, especially when you consider things like not just a digital divide, but also digital redlining, which is where some communities and areas of town, you may live in the same city as other people, but they may have different experiences based off of where they live. I think that's the COVID pandemic has raised the awareness around digital redlining, because that has been a major barrier to a lot of people being able to create content, even with cell phone data plans, as some of them are capped. That can become barriers to content creation. But personally, where I feel has happened now is because of the pandemic. There's been a lot of attention paid to those issues now because it has impacted children's ability to engage in education. And I think what we're going to start to see over the next couple of years is hopefully, as we realize just how important internet access is that we start looking at more as a utility in this country, less than as a service provided by a private company. And we hopefully will build out better equity of access to those resources in our communities. And then have better content creation.
Well, and James, I actually think what you talk about there, though, with internet access, it reminds me of a philosophy that we've had at DePaul and why we've started more content creation, because we do know a lot of our students have those internet issues, and they might be interested in doing an experience, but they may not be able to do it at an exact time because they might be sharing devices with family members. They might not, they may not have bandwidth capability to experience it at all times. Like, that's what we're seeing in the academic realm. Like, people, like our faculty members are offering classes synchronously and asynchronously, right? Either happening in real time or happening at a time that's convenient for the students. And I think about that as a benefit for live stream content creation. What you can do with it, you obviously are recording in the moment, but we have viewers right now watching this live stream as it's happening, but we're also going to have viewers later on who are going to be able to catch the video on demand. And I think that really speaks to what you're talking about too with access. Live content creation gives your program and gives this community a way to connect with people at whatever time works for them, and really whatever is convenient for them.
And one thing I want to add to that as well too is I think what this has allowed for people to do, especially for educators, because esports and gaming, when we talk about it in schools, is for a lot of kids it's a very jarring thing because they're not used to hearing us say like, hey, that thing that you love to do, let's start bringing that into schools. Kids, especially at the K-12 level, don't necessarily see all the educational connections. They silo things really well. Like hey, I created this amazing video, or I'm really good at doing things with Minecraft. And what I think what we have started to see now are educators who are saying, hey, that really cool Minecraft thing you do, why don't we bring that in? Instead of having you write the paper, do the design work or build the game or build the experience to bring people through. The concept of that is called universal design for learning. It was a concept that was used in primarily at first at special education because they wanted to give kids multiple means of expressing themselves. And I think where we're starting to see a beautiful marrying of these kids who have been developing this beautiful content for years but not feeling they could bring it into the classroom, I think we're now starting to see kids who are passionate about gaming and gaming culture and saying, wait a second, I can apply these skill sets now into what I'm already doing and feel more engaged in the class that they're participating in and creating content that is meaningful to them and expresses their understanding of the knowledge that they're being asked to learn.
Mm-hmm.
No, and I think you bring up a really good point, James, as far as the question concerns about the obstacles, right? Because as educators, in the ways that we're finding ourselves kind of fitting ourselves into those spaces as someone who's informing people, internet and the way that the quarantine has forced us to, use our internet a lot, like Courtney has kind of said, more as a utility than anything. We realize that a lot of people don't know how it works. It's one of those things that comes into your house, and so much about your life is automated around those things. We don't really realize how exactly it works and how, the different grades of internet allow you to do different things. So imagine trying to say, yeah, I want to make sure that I stream in HD, but not really understanding upload and download speeds, or saying, I want to, even if you wanted to edit videos and you wanted to do high-end editing, I think my Twitch streams on Thursday nights, the stream is worth 12 gigabytes of information. So imagine if you don't have really great internet, imagine trying to say, I want to upload this someplace and how long that upload is going to take, and whether or not, you're going to kind of be able to meet the demand on trying to say, hey, I want to push out content. I want to make sure people get it in a timely manner. So, not only are we dealing with, a story about the haves and have-nots, we're also consistently educating people whether or not they got it, whether they got it or not.
And as Danielle said, when we were all chit-chatting before, and Courtney, I think you alluded to this as well, having multiple people in your house, and kind of play off Kevin's, just having internet access, but then you got 5 or 6 people in the house who are all trying to do things. That 25 meg down that you're paying, $15 a month for may work if you're one person.
Yeah.
But when you get 5 or 6 people in the house who are all, imagine if it was all 5 of us in the same place right now trying to have this conversation and stream this out. It would be chaos.
Jimmy, we're going to start hearing about parents kicking kids out for using too much internet. I've had just about enough. You've got to go pack your bags.
Yeah, well, and I think that content creation, especially for our students, one of the reasons I really appreciate it as an administrator is, yes, I mean, it gives people this chance to intake things and to experience your program experience, whatever it might be. But it also gives people, and James, you alluded to this, it gives people the chance to give back and feel connected. And I think, thinking about college campuses in particular and how our students interact, so much of a college experience, I think is, yes, it's about the inside the classroom things, but it's about being successful in a group project, or, having a really great student organization meeting, or having a practice. And that's missing right now. At DePaul, we 95.6% of our student or our classes are happening remotely. So giving students an outlet for content creation, I think, has given them a way to feel that sense of accomplishment and to feel like they're giving back, that they're doing something. And I think it's been really helpful for us. So Matt, I wanted to turn, as the student on the panel here. I know I talk to a lot of students that have an interest in starting to create content, but they just don't know how to do it. So I'm curious if you can talk to us a little bit about what your startup experience looked like. What equipment did you have? Was it easy? Was it hard? Were you using a specific software? Anything like that you can just inform viewers a little bit about?
Right. So, about like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I was probably spending most of my Friday evenings hosting Smash Brothers tournaments at the DePaul University campus. Anybody who's been to one of those tournaments knows that whenever I was live streaming one of those events, I had a very, very particular setup. My laptop needed to be in exactly this spot. The microphone needed to be exactly here, and the TV needs to be exactly over there. If anything gets touched, you're in trouble. It's going to mess everything up. So I think that's so, and I was really, part of it was, because I didn't have all the technology, the hardware needed to put together a good stream at the time. But another part of it, which is something that I've kind of been able to work on more over the past, couple of years, is, just increasing my knowledge of how live streaming works and being able to kind of work with what I've been given. Nowadays I have a little bit of a better microphone. I don't have to just borrow my roommate's headset or anything like that. But, as far as stuff like as far as stuff like my laptop that I use, or a capture card that I use when I'm streaming a game from a console, that's still the same stuff I've been using. And so I think it's something that really helps out for people when they are starting to do content creation, whether it's through they're just them streaming they're playing different video games, or just streaming them themselves, doing stuff like what we've been doing at DePaul, where we do sort of podcast style live streams, or demos for building a PC. With those kind of things, I think it really helps to just do a little bit of your own research into what you're able to do with either the kind of power that your PC or laptop has, and the kind of internet connection that you have. And there's plenty of resources you can look up, something like what kind of recommended bitrate you should use, whether you should be trying to stream at a higher or lower resolution, or whether, and like, just things like that, just being able to like optimize what you've been using as best as you can. And, as far as like programs are concerned, obviously we're using something that we've been using a lot more nowadays is a program called StreamYard, which to anybody with a very keen eye might notice that we may or may not be using that right now. That's a very, very helpful program. I think it's super straightforward. You can stream to multiple different outlets at the same time, whether it's twitch.tv or any other broadcasting software or like a hosting website. And stuff like transitions, having videos or like links show up is super, super straightforward. I think if you want to get to maybe a little bit more like a personal live stream, or something that's, or like if you're just trying to stream like a tournament for a game or something like that, something like everybody talks about like OBS and like how it's kind of the go-to as far as like free software for live streaming. And I do think it's something that's definitely worth looking into. I do think it's definitely, I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're new and you're trying to like kind of figure out exactly how everything works. It's just that, again, it could be a little daunting to kind of just jump in right away. So you might need to do a little bit of research on how to use the program itself, look up maybe like a couple of tutorials. So I guess if I was to recommend like a road path when it comes to like streaming and getting stuff started out, don't be afraid to like start with something like StreamYard, something that's just a little bit, something that's a little bit more straightforward, user-friendly, easy to work with. And then once you're a little bit more comfortable with what you have, you could do a little bit of research into how to use OBS and how to optimize your settings to make sure you get the best quality possible with the kind of hardware that you have.
Yeah, and I know, especially at DePaul, and when we turn to a virtual environment, my normal job, so I'm the director of student involvement in esports. So we oversee campus activities, fraternity and sorority life, student orgs, and esports. So we started with our test pilot for StreamYard was actually from an esports program that we did called the Esports Career Chats way back in July. But the software, yep, Kevin was in it, Danielle was in it. I think actually, I was thinking about this. I actually think, yeah, James wasn't, but we'll get you in the next set, James. I think that Matt, did you interview Danielle as part of it? Was she your interview?
Yeah, I was definitely a part of it.
Yeah, and I think when you were talking about bit rates, I remember because your router is in your laundry room, and I remember we had to like you moved from the laundry room, I think, to where you are now. But that's real, right? Like I mean, I'm in my clearly like this is a bed right here. Like we're doing this from all sorts of different locations, but I think particularly for program administrators, like everybody kept telling me early on when we were doing programs like check out OBS, it's a free software, it's free to use. And with all of the other hats that I wear, I couldn't figure it out. I didn't have the mental space to figure it out. So a software like StreamYard, and there's a couple different ones out there, it's just simplified things so much, and it has removed so many barriers for us to start getting content out there. And James was talking about this earlier. I think one of he was talking about a podcast, and I don't remember if it was in the pre-show or during a show that he does every Thursday night. And I think that cycle is a really great way to get started as well. Like pick a date, ask cyclical questions, and just start. Like human beings are creatures of habit, and I think that cycle it'll just get you going. And there's lots of people who are willing to help.
And I have to say too, for my podcast is coming up, I'll be on my 3-year anniversary. And, I started with my old MacBook Air, a cheap camera, no microphone. I basically just used whatever mic was in it. And I swear, if you ever go back and look at episode 1 of the Academy of Esports podcast, it looks like I am a hostage. Like I have a camera right here in my face. I am just like, hello, I'm going to talk to you about esports. And it was just very, robotic. And obviously I was, you're trying to find your flow. And even those esports EDU chats that we do on Thursday nights at 6:30 p.m. Central, we do those. Those started this summer because there were a number of us educators who were just trying to find ways to connect. We were trying to find, what are we going to do during the pandemic? How are we going to work through all this? And it took us time to find our chemistry. It took us time to find our flow. And now we've got our inside jokes. We've got we're like a radio show now. You know, those old morning radio shows that have like goofy, sound clips and all kinds of stuff. So it does take time for you, especially when you're developing content for the first time. You're not going to get it out the gate right the first time. There's going to be, especially if you're working with somebody else, even if you know them really well, there's going to be chemistry that has to develop over time. And allow that to. Don't give up on it when you think that you're not. And don't go out there thinking you're going to make a whole bunch of money doing it. Do it because you love doing it. Don't do it because you think you're going to go out and be a millionaire doing it. If you want to make millions, do that. But do it and talk about it because you love it, because that's what people love to hear about. They love hearing you talk about things that you're passionate about.
And I think that's a really good point, James. Just, and that was what I was going to bring up, like Matt's story, even just don't be afraid to do it a little bit at a time, like those baby steps that, for instance, I'm waiting on my better headset to come in, but I've got a ring light. That was step one, so don't be afraid to do it a little bit at a time, and maybe have some of those hostage videos at the very beginning, but it'll get better, and that's okay.
And even, people go, well, do I need like a really expensive webcam? I mean, if you need some perspective, the webcam, I'm in my office today. I'm not at my home where I have my real nice setup. This is my webcam camera that I'm using. And usually they're not very good quality, but even now, Elgato has an app you can buy. I think it's like $7, and that'll turn if you have a really nice cell phone, or if you have a pretty good quality cell phone with good camera, you can turn your cell phone and just download the app. It works on Android and iOS. For $7 or $8, you can get that app and use your cell phone as your camera. So most people have this, even if your phone is 5 or 6 years old, that camera on the back is usually better quality than what you would get in a webcam that you're going to go out and spend another $100 on. So use what you got too, really.
Yeah, use what you got. And I think the other part is, like, particularly when you start bringing in guests and other people, work with what they have. Like a lot of this, like, again, I don't want to turn this into a StreamYard commercial, but like one of the great parts about it is there's no download. And I've had many conversations with people that I'm like, hey, do you have some headphones somewhere, and can you plug them in? And it's easy to bring other people into things too and make it more of an experience. And that actually, I think, transitions to the next topic that I wanted to talk about in terms of audience engagement and engaging viewers. And Kevin, I think you do this exceedingly well with IPlayGames. I know you have a number of different streams. Yeah, he's like, let me turn this into a 3-hour lesson about engaging.
No, I was going to say you need me to fill some time. So you were like, I got to go to Kevin. He can take this all the way through to the end. Let me go ahead and pull my boy up. No, Courtney, I really appreciate, hearing compliments in that way about being able to engage an audience. Because guess what? I think it comes easy. Generally, because I to echo what everyone has already said, I like what I do. I really just enjoy it. I was, funny enough to date myself. I don't have the gray hairs just yet, but to date myself, I was there when Justin.tv turned into Twitch.tv, and I had a laptop with a webcam that I fried essentially, trying to go 1080p when 1080 just came out. Televisions just started doing it, so people couldn't even see it in 1080. But what I realized quickly through my lack of resources, equipment-wise, I learned that being someone who engages the audience is just as important. And it's funny that, we mentioned how good cell phone cameras are. I tell people all the time, we do all these special effects in video games and sometimes have 12 viewers. People log on to Facebook Live with their camera and just sitting there have 60 viewers. So, the technology does not necessarily always make the difference. Obviously, you can look at it from a professional quality and definitely make the differentiators there, but your ability to engage the audience is not limited by those things. And so even though I think now I can talk about how many different tools we use, a la the StreamYard, and our ability to take comments and add them into lower thirds here so that people who are actively commenting feel like they're being heard and talked about. I always try to return it to that really simple lesson right there, which is people are watching you because they like what you're saying. At the same time, the reason why this medium is so great is that it is a two-way street. If you're hearing what people are saying, they're happy to be there. And I think that that's really important. You get awesome feedback from your audience on what you're going to do next. I don't know any streamer who's had some level of success. I don't know any organization that streamed that said, well, no, we've never taken an idea from our audience, not once. We all of these things were things that we created and thought of, and we just kept it moving. And I mean, even down to, the really simple things, which are, hey, I see drummer JG. Even when I struggle and say people's names, I literally ask them, hey, tell me how I say that. And then they fix it for me. They will tell you how to feel appreciated. And I think your ability to do that and interact with your audience is, like I said, more important than the technology in a lot of times. And even in this chat, I found myself falling into the pattern of saying, no, I've got to realize that he said something and I have to respond and I have to make sure that he knows that I heard him. And I think it's, once again, I think it's, something that comes easy to me because I am actively into video games. And I think that sometimes for entities, for enterprises that are trying to get into it, they're trying to figure out who's going to be that for them, right? Or how do they engage their gaming audience? How do they select their gaming audience? And so, I've had the opportunity of being able to cast a number of different kind of games. Some I'm not even really good at, but because I know about the topic, because I know a lot about the subject matter, it makes it really easy for me to start conversation. And then sometimes I truly do just throw things to my crowd to allow them to educate me on it. And that's another way of engaging them. So it's a lot of different ways to do a lot of different stuff that I think at the end all tries to help. Old college user ID that was available on Twitch. Sorry, later. Thank you. I'm going to go with Dromo for right now so I don't botch your name 1,000 times today. But no, and I mean, like, that's really important information to really kind of pick up about your audience and where they come from. I'm actually trying to, magnify your icon too, so that I can see what the icon actually is. But no, this is how it starts, honestly. And this, I look at Dromo as someone who is interested in what we're talking about. I look at them as someone who can also potentially be a contributor, things that I want to hear about the subject matter from them. And again, the reason why TV is struggling and in comparison to this is because TV is definitely a one-way street. They usually show you what they want you to see. You do not frequently feel heard or felt. And media like, platforms like Twitch or your ability to reach an audience on something like a Facebook and YouTube are two-way streets that give audience appreciation a whole new kind of label.
Well, and if I could just add something really quickly to that as well, like, I totally get the idea of, I want to be the star streamer, or I want it to be about me, or I want it to be my channel. But, especially if you're talking about, other kinds of content rather than just streaming your gameplay, sometimes it's really, really helpful to have like a wing person, and to just have, someone else there. They don't even necessarily have to be into video games. They just need to be someone who can keep an eye on the chat and then can like jump in and say, hey, we had this question, or this person said this, or, they can be responding to chat. I know we've used that tons of times on our events and our, different content streams that we've done, where we'll buddy up and we'll say, hey, can you be my chat buddy for this particular event so that I can facilitate, I can talk with the guests and keep it going, but then you can help me make sure that we're staying in touch with that audience. So I think those are great points, Kevin.
Yeah, and having that moderator does it. No, you're 100% right on that, Danielle.
I have to dovetail off of that one because, especially with K-12, again, dealing with minors, and we are streaming. Our teams are all streaming. And I have to remind people that while the people on this panel, people who are watching, are mostly, I'm going to guess, are believers in the power of what this is, right? They're supporters of esports. They want to see gaming and esports culture brought into education or wherever we do it, right? But with schools, you have to realize, especially K-12, it is still a fragile thing. As wonderful as we know that it is one of those things that one scandal, one instance of something not getting done right, and it blows up. And then it becomes, I have to go to a school board and talk to a whole school board, which I don't ever want to have to talk to a school board. I don't like going to meetings I don't have to go to. Having that, there was one time we did not have a moderator, and I was in on the stream and I was watching it. And when they did not moderate some of the things out, I contacted whoever was running it and I said, kill the stream now. Kill it now. I was like, take it down. Don't. It is one instance. It takes that one community member to watch this, especially again when you're dealing with minors and go, well, wait a second. These are 14-year-olds and this is what's going on through a school related thing. Having that team, it's not, especially even if you're just doing it for yourself, just having that one person, that friend, that advocate that you can rely on who says, hey, I'm going to stream, please help me, especially as you start, when you got 2 or 3 people, no big deal, we're watching. But it can happen overnight. You can get suddenly front paged on Twitch and now you've got 200 people. And then what do you do? Do you just close up shop and go, too many people? No, you don't. You just keep going. But having that person there is really important.
Well, and I would add, there's a difference, I think, even between sometimes a moderator and like a production person that can help with some of this too. Because like right now, I'm the facilitator of this conversation in the event, but Tyler is in the back of house right now. Hi, Tyler. Like they're keeping an eye on comments. If anybody has any questions, you're free to post them in the comments and we can pull them on screen as well. But I know that I've done that with a couple different events, like for Matt and for our esports leadership team as well. We have some that our students just do on their own now. Like we're doing actually we borrowed James the esports EDU title, and we're doing some deep dive series for all of the different teams and programs that DePaul has. But that is one that's student moderated. But like Matt talked a little bit about the build a PC demo. We knew that one was going to be a little bit more complex in terms of like what we were going to have to share on screen. So Matt was on screen and I was there in the production back of the house, moving things around, pulling in questions, comments, all of those different parts. So I think even when you're setting it up, like thinking about who and how do you need people, because I think a co-host is great to help, as I like to say, it's to move through the awkward, right? Like it's to keep things moving, keep things rolling, but that production side is a little bit different too.
Yeah, I think something else that's really important to keep in mind when it comes to stuff like moderation is like I've known a lot of people that like when they try to put together live streams, it's very easy to like get in the mindset of like, oh, I'll just be able to handle it all myself. I don't really need to ask another person today or ever for that matter. I'll be okay. But it's easy to get overwhelmed when you're trying to put together the entire production, handle all of like the slides, the videos, making sure that your overlay is properly corrected. If there's like a tournament going on, making sure the scoreboard is properly updated and labeled. There's a lot of like factors to it. So, at that point, your attention is so divided. You're going to be missing things that are in like Twitch chat, or you're going to be missing things like, oh wait, my audio was, or like my microphone was muted the entire time and I didn't know. So like even with like smaller streams like us at the esports leadership team at DePaul, like we have a group channel. We'll just go ahead and like message each other and be like, hey, we have this one live stream going on later today. Are one of you able to just like hang around for maybe like the first 30 minutes, just like, kind of like watch the chat, make sure nobody is acting up, or like make sure that the stream quality is good because I'm trying a new setting or something like that. And it just makes everything so much better in the long run. So again, to anybody who's watching and thinks they're like, oh, I can handle this all myself, it's easy. Don't be afraid to just ask for like 1 or 2 more people to just help out with even just like something that's really small.
And I think too, what we also need to do kind of today is, and hopefully Courtney, you're okay with this, is also kind of expand the idea of content creation, because I know we're focused on a lot of digital things. And while statistically we're talking, some of the data is hit and miss, but we're roughly looking at 50% of people who are kids, especially who are involved in esports, are on a STEM related path, there are 50% of those kids who are not on a STEM related path. They are interested in other things beyond science, technology, engineering, and math. And we need to also think about content creation from the non-digital side of things. And one of the things that we do with our program is our students are the creators of our jerseys. So, having our students who are artists and designers to be able to take their ideas, sketch them out, and produce them into different things. In fact, I have one of our jerseys here. I'll just hold it up. This is for the Walden School, and as you can see on it, we've got the whole deal here. And there's my, if you can't see it, there's my gamer tag and everything that I'm the esports czar of the district. Having those kind of things are really important too for some kids, because again, I've got kids who come to me around esports and say, look, I'm stink at playing video games. I'm just bad, but I like the gaming culture. They're into the cosplay. They're into the t-shirts. They're into, social media management. Let's talk about that. I mean, that's a perfect idea around content creation. Or going with one of our things that we did in our program, one of our local papers, the Racine County Eye, was interested in covering esports. They did not have any people on their press who understood esports, but they knew when they started doing esports production on their website, their traffic went up and their ad revenue went up because people were hitting those stories because they're popular. They're easy to find, So they said, well, how do we write these stories? I said, I don't know how to write these stories, but I have a bunch of kids who could tell you exactly how to write these stories. So I teamed up kids. We called them the press secretaries. Every team had press secretaries, and they worked with the press on writing the stories for the website. That is also content creation. They weren't physically writing the stories, but they were informing. They were telling the story. They were the ones getting interviewed. They were the ones who were laying the groundwork out for how the stories were going to be presented, whether win or lose. And that was a great thing too, is getting kids in front of a camera, especially after a loss, especially after a tough loss, and interviewing them and asking them to reflect on it. And it helps them to put it in perspective. It helps to take these feelings of being tilted or feeling like, oh my God, that it's the end of the world when I lose, and turning that into how do we express how we feel in a positive way, or in a way that conveys your feelings of loss, but also at the same time, how do we move on, and how do we go on to the next thing and do it with sportsmanship? And that's something that's really been missing in esports for a long time, because a lot of our kids have had a Lord of the Flies experience. They've just been left to their own devices. And it's important that, people like Kevin, is doing the work in the community to help get kids on the right path. How I'm trying to do this with high school kids as well too, because again, up until 10 years ago, there was nobody. These kids were just doing it on their own, and nobody was home helping them out. And as an educator, it was part of our fault. We looked at Facebook, YouTube, and all the social media stuff, and we said, we're not going to have that in our schools. We're just shutting it off. We're not going to teach kids how to use it. We're not going to teach them how to engage in it. We're just going to put our head in the sand and do nothing about it. And what do we get? We get a bunch of 20 and 30-year-olds who don't know how to act online anymore. And they're upset that they're losing jobs for stuff that they're posting. Because for 15 years they weren't told that wasn't okay. So sorry, I went on a big tangent there. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of tangents. So sorry. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Well, it's a multifaceted. No, I mean, you're 100% right. It's a multifaceted issue. And here's what I tell people. I literally was talking about this the other day. We've given teenagers, we've given preteens these incredibly powerful devices that adults make mistakes with. Adults still don't get it right. And so we've given them these devices, but we've also tried to curb, our responsibility on trying to teach them how to properly act on them. And I tell people all the time, imagine if you were a kid and you had this many cameras on you in some way, shape, or form. We all would have been in trouble. Everybody would have done something that they would have regrettably not wanted to have on camera, let alone the contradictions that we teach them today. We tell them not to do negative things on camera. We try to be vocal about the things we want them to think about as far as content creation goes. At the same time, we're also rewarding negative behavior from their peers. If the video goes viral, then was it really that bad? If it ends up making you money, you get to go on a Dr. Phil show. If it's negative enough, you get airtime for it. And you know those people are compensated. So, again, I think we have a lot to sort out, as adults, but we also, I think to your point, James, we have to take a bigger responsibility on how we teach, what we want to be, good or better code of conducts when you are interacting on these types of things. So no, it's a multifaceted issue, man.
Oh, you want to go further down the rabbit hole? We also wait, let's go further with this content creation conversation. Happened just recently. There's been a few events that Dr. Disrespect has been involved with that I have been approached saying, hey, can we put a bunch of high school kids in with this event? I said, no, I'm not going to team up high school kids with Dr. Disrespect. It's not happening. Look, dude's been banned from Twitch. We don't know why. I don't want to know why.
Dr. Disrespect.
His name is Dr. Disrespect.
And as much as I appreciate the craft, you know what I mean? I don't want this
right.
to turn into us getting upset at him. But no, I mean, like, you're right, James, you're thinking about this as the adult in the room. It's like, no, I have to have a bigger responsibility to my students than that. And even though we may be able to share in some of the exposure that it may give us, what's the long-term effects on my students in that way?
It is so, you're right about it being adults in the room, but there's also adults who are stepping into this space because there is a flow of money. They're looking for every angle that they can make money. And guess where the money is? The money is with for those teenage kids. We have to, those of us who are working with kids, now college, again, different story. You're not dealing with minors, you're dealing with adults. But when you're dealing with minors, the messaging and the firewalls have to be higher than it's as if, like, what I would bring Dr. Disrespect into my school and let him go, have at with whatever kids in my class. No way. That's not happening. When we're thinking about this content creation stuff, we have to set those firewalls. We have to set those barriers. When we were kids, we used to listen to music that was inappropriate. We were too young to listen to, but we didn't have teachers bringing it in and saying, hey, listen to this, because our teachers would be strung up if we had been listening to some stuff that we shouldn't have been listening to when we were little kids.
Yeah, well, and I think right now in particular, this just speaks to the value, as I'm listening here, it speaks to the value of giving students the opportunity to learn how to moderate these things and, learn how to exist in this, in this world that, we are all truly global citizens for. And we now, I think because of the pandemic, a lot of this technology existed beforehand. We just weren't as good at it. And, like Kevin said, some people still aren't good at it. But I think diving into lives or creating content, diving into some of this, it gives students the opportunity to learn how to do this. So like James said, the 20, 30-year-olds that were surprised that they were getting kicked off or being held accountable for things that they put on social media. The goal of this right now is to give students that opportunity to avoid that in the future and to teach them how to do it. And so they can take this knowledge and skill set for whatever industry they are. Like James talked about, that 50% of our students are in STEM related fields. That's what we're seeing at DePaul. 50% of our students are out of our College of Computing and Digital Media, but the other 50% are out of science, liberal arts, psychology. Matt's a grad student in psychology right now, but he now has a whole new skill set that he can take into a different avenue. But we're heading towards the tail end of our time, and I wanted to end with creating some space for advice. So, Danielle, I was thinking maybe we could start with you for this. So, as students or viewers maybe creating content for the very first time, do you have any advice for them as they move forward?
Yeah, so I do have advice. They're all probably going to throw tomatoes at my picture on the screen with the advice I'm going to give. But this is partially like my background as an IT project manager and things like that. The thing I would say is, especially, if you're talking about like you just want to have a friendly game of Among Us and you all just want to, speak and have fun and do whatever, then yeah, you don't really need to plan. But if you're going to have a panel like what we've got today, or if you're wanting to get a very specific message across, or wanting to communicate, a very particular type of event or a tournament, or a health and wellness panel around esports or something like that, recognize the fact and like build it in that you're going to need to plan for it. And whether that planning is, like a run of show document where you say, hey, for the first 5 minutes, we're going to do this. For the second 10 minutes, we're going to do this. And then we're going to move into this, and making sure that that's shared with those moderators, those co-hosts, those panelists that are on there. There's, in my personal opinion, there's no such thing as too much communication when you're prepping for an event, or when you're going to try to do some really great content on a live stream. Just making sure that everybody knows what's going on and knows what the game plan is, and then also knows their part. I feel like that's something sometimes, especially like when we're younger or when we're first getting started facilitating things or hosting things, you don't necessarily recognize how much time it does take to plan a really well run event. So, do that, and call on, my advice for advice is to call for advice. So get advice from your mentors, or from other people that you work with, other people who maybe have done streams or facilitated panels. Whether it's like James was saying, whether it's digital or whether it's in person, feel free to reach out to some of those mentors who maybe have done it before and just ask for their advice. Ask if they have any templates for a run of show. Ask if they have any recordings that you could watch. Ask if they have any question and answer templates, or any tips and tricks for going through things like. Courtney, and maybe I'm going to call you out here a little bit, and hopefully you don't mind. But if you all notice, like Courtney had specific questions in mind that she wanted to ask specific people. And so, having that prep work, and it doesn't have to be a lot, it could just be a list of things. But having that prep work done, and then also making sure you share that with the people that you're going to have on there or the people that are going to be involved, goes such a long way in making it feel like a professional presentation.
Yeah, I think
Commence tomatoes.
Don't worry, I'm holding on to my tomatoes. But I think running right off that point of communication and like making sure you're planning like well enough ahead. I think something I could add on to that that's a little bit more, I guess, a little bit more directed towards like universities or like or academic institutions that are trying to grow their esports communities. Something that I've always told like other like schools that are like, hey, I'm really trying to get my like esports scene off the ground up, and we really want to like branch into like content creation. I think this is the way to go. Do not be afraid to reach out to the communities that are already established in your school. Like if you do just a little bit of like digging, a little bit of research into like what kind of like clubs even, or just like general like friend groups even that like are already invested in playing a game. Like let's say like, oh, I really want to host this event for like I really want to host this like Rocket League event or like and I want to live stream it. You reach out to like, do a little bit of like looking around, see if you could find Rocket League players that are already established in the Rocket League community and are already starting their own Rocket League community, and team up with them, kind of like work together towards a common goal of growth and expanding into content creation. Because odds are, if you're trying to tackle all these different games and all these different genres for live streams at once, you're just going to end up falling a little bit far behind, and you're going to start getting confused on what exactly you want to do. Like what exactly you want to do for a certain game, because you don't have that experience yet. So yeah, just reach out to people, like grow a community within yours before starting to like get a bunch of new people involved.
And around that community aspect, and again, I look again through things from the K-12 lens, creating these walled garden experiences too for kids, so that they learn how to exist in these online spaces. A tool that a lot of educators are using right now, which is a great tool, especially for elementary and middle school, if you're looking at starting an esports club and you want to have kind of like your own community building online, use Google Classroom. Okay, it's a very simple tool. A lot of educators already know how to use it. You've been using it during the pandemic. Guess what? It can be used to develop your esports team. But if you're taking things to the next level, let's say you want to level up a little bit, consider building out a Discord community for your school. And the way we have ours set up is we have our whole district, not individual schools. Our whole district is all in one Discord server. And I've divided up the channels into space. I think of it like Hogwarts, Harry Potter, right? Everybody goes to school together, and then everybody in Harry Potter has their houses. So in the houses, those are your specific school channels where kids can just interact with their peers from their school within there. But what I also did is, again, part of this walled garden experience and teaching kids what's appropriate, what's not, because a lot of them have some really interesting perspectives on what is appropriate and what they find funny. Again, high school kids. We did set up a memes channel. Now you may say, oh my God, James, you set up a memes channel and just said, okay, now go for it. First couple of days, there was a learning curve on what was appropriate and what wasn't. But guess what? When they figure out what is appropriate, what isn't, they start to realize, and it isn't a punitive punishment system. It is a take it down and tell them, hey, there's a problem with this one. Can you explain to me why you thought this was okay? And not to cut them out, but to, again, have them look at things from different perspectives. Especially when we were getting close to the election, there were some things that were going up that were questionable. And it was, again, respecting other people's opinions and ideas and thoughts. And again, using these spaces as a walled garden to teach. Because when they go out into the real world, and again, they're looking for a job or they're posting things publicly, this is the opportunity that we have to meet kids where they are and help teach them in authentic ways about how to care for their digital footprint and answer the question, ultimately, what is your brand? Every kid, I ask them, what is your brand? I don't ask them what they want to be when they grow up. How do you want the world to see you is ultimately that question.
I don't think I could have. I don't think there's a way I could have said that better. I think you hit every rung on it. We're not, as opposed to running from a problem. I think more and more people are going to think about how these things are actually about teaching kids still, and how it's not going to go away because you didn't feel the problem when it, was kind of in your house in some way to say. I think it's actually a great thing to start dealing with the how and why you thought this was okay. And then as an adult, informing them on why it's not okay, or why, hey, so here's the perspective that you know nothing about that you need to really kind of consider when you say or do something like that. I don't think it could have been said any better.
And Courtney, real quick, just one other additional thing that I wanted to jump in there, because I know James has been great given the K-12 perspective. From a high ed perspective, we've seen a lot of programs that are super successful when you actually, reach out and connect your esports program with other academic areas. So, for example, for streaming, like reach out to your College of Media and Communications or your College of Journalism or et cetera, because you've got students there who, again, maybe they're not techie, maybe they're not even into games or esports, but they want to learn how to be broadcasters or journalists, and shoutcasting and live streaming is a wonderful way to bring those opportunities to those students, but then to also really help out your esports program with students that have been being trained on how to do this, for just other purposes. So, make sure that you're reaching out to and that you're thinking collaboratively on your campus, or, anybody that maybe that's in journalism. Just get those advice and get those mentorship opportunities and those project opportunities together.
Oh my gosh, those schools that say, hey, we're setting up an esports engineering, or we're setting up an esports business, or we're setting up don't stop it. Take esports and put it into what you're doing right now. Again, there's high intrinsic motivation for kids. If 97% of boys and 83% of girls are playing video games right now, which is according to Pew Research, they are, use that don't try to wrap it around the other way. Take that intrinsic motivation and build it into what you're doing. Danielle, what you were just bringing up about the content creation, I look at some like my own. I went to Purdue University. One of their strategic goals is the development of more patents. A lot of universities, big universities, make a ton of money off of patents. What better for a 17, 18, 19-year-old to say, hey, you want to be an engineering student? I need a mouse that clicks faster than what current mechanical mice do. And think about where that goes, and not just in patents for gaming and whatever. Think about, hey, we're going to get rid of carpal tunnel. Hey, think of the military industrial complex. All that becomes a moneymaker. That's a content creation to create patents, to create products that people can use outside of the university. Don't necessarily have to throw out everything that you've been doing great all these years. Just wrap it differently. It can be done so much easier than what a lot of universities are doing right now.
Well, panelists, thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today. I truly enjoyed today's conversation. So again, appreciate all of you being here. For our viewers, we are about a third of the way through our EGF lead series. So next week, you can join us again at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central Time for team management team management as a student captain. So it'll be again on the Twitch or the EGF Twitch, which is twitch.tv/official EGF. But if you want to catch this video on demand or any others, all of them are available on YouTube. But until next time, we hope you stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.